Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Kyle Duffy, and you're listening to Is a Recording, a podcast for passions. Episodes are available on Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and many more platforms like this. New to Is a Recording, follow the podcast on Spotify so you never miss an episode. New uploads every Friday. I'm very excited about what I have in store for you today. I hope you all enjoy it. Let's get things started. Hello and welcome to the show. You're listening to Is a Recording. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you do, you can always check out the rest of my catalogue available up on Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and many more platforms like this. No matter what podcast platform you listen to, make sure to give Is a Recording some love up there, give it a follow, and share the episode with your friends. If you're a returning listener, you may notice that the podcast name and title has changed. And to start off today's show, I wanted to explain why I've changed the title and get into a bit of the background of why I made the decision to rebrand the title name. When I started off podcasting over a year ago, I started on YouTube, just YouTube. I didn't really know how far I wanted to take this idea of podcasting and putting out content. I thought, this is going to be great for my CV. I'm going into the world of radio. I have ambitions to be a presenter. This would be a great practical way to build my skills and at the same time have something on my CV to show potential employers down the line that, I have experience editing content and putting stuff together and talking on the mic. And it's all independent of working somewhere. I'm doing this in my downtime. I'm doing this in my spare time. So it's a passion. But as time grew, my love of podcasting grew, and I wanted to upgrade and up my levels of my content. So obviously I tried to get my podcast on Spotify, which I did, and I've been kind of upgrading things since then. I have my new setup, I have my new podcasting setup, my new mics, a workspace that's really ideal for me right now. And I've always felt that I chose Finding Yourself as a name because of how I was feeling in that moment and the transition period I was going through at that time. If any of you don't know and you haven't listened to the podcast before, I wasn't always in radio. I didn't always have ambitions for this. I started off in college doing social care, worked in the area for a while, but I always had ambitions of working in radio. And it was always something in the back of my mind that I wanted to try. I almost tried it when I was 18. I almost did a media course, PLC media course, but that fell through. So I decided to take something safe and that really just felt like a good idea to me at the time. I have a disability, so that felt like I was kind of on the inside looking in terms of social care. I felt like I would be good at that because I have empathy for people with disabilities because I have a physical disability myself. So I felt that, okay, this is something I could do. And I was right in a sense because I got my degree. I worked in the area for a while, but I realized, okay, especially during the lockdown, okay, I'm not really happy working in this area. It's not giving me fulfillment. And then I got turned on to podcasting and radio again, and built up my confidence to put out the podcast. And once I did, I've been kind of slowly upgrading and molding the podcast into a structure and structured show that I really love and love doing every week. So I think the name Finding Yourself reflected where I was coming from at that time. But at the moment, right now, it doesn't reflect the content of the show. So that's why I decided to change the name of the podcast. Because I don't want people clicking into my podcast and thinking it's a self-help podcast or, a podcast that's going to motivate you to get what you want in life and do what you want in life. Sure, I have moments where I tell stories about my past and my life that I think and I hope people would take some inspiration from and be able to relate to. I've talked about my disability in the past and my journey with disability. But overall, the podcast for me is a place where I can let my hair down, talk about things I'm passionate for, like movies, like TV shows, give reviews, talk about the world of cinema, and discuss sports with my friends that come on the podcast sometimes as well. So hopefully now rebranding the name will give people a better idea of what this podcast is about and not give false advertising for it being some self-help podcast with a name like Finding Yourself. And you may be asking yourself, why did I wait so long to change the name of the podcast? And it's so stupid, but I thought to myself for so long, okay, you have the name, you have that done and dusted, like you've been posting for maybe a couple of months under this name. Don't change it now, just work on the content. I still had time and ideas in my head of molding out the podcast a bit more and the structure of it, what topics I want to discuss, what exactly this podcast is going to look like and what it's going to offer its listeners. And overall, like I said in the intro, it's a podcast for passions. This podcast is for anyone who has a passion for movies or sports or gaming, because that's what my passions are about. You know, I love playing PS5 games. I love playing PC games. I love talking about gaming. I love talking about movies. I have all these fucking useless facts about movies that my fiance doesn't care about, but she's going to hear anyway. You know, I always want to bend someone's ear and talk about movies I love non-stop until I'm told, listen, we're good on that. And I'm lucky that I have friends around me that have the same passions as me. I have a friend who's big on sports. I have a friend who's big on movies. I have multiple friends who are big on both. So it's great that I have people around me that want to listen to my crap and want to listen to my useless facts. But overall, it's a passion. I have a passion for movies. I have a passion for cinema. And that's why I got into radio as well, to talk about this stuff as well. And I've been doing that the past year and a bit with CRCFM, you know, and they've been great. They've really been nurturing my love of radio. And hopefully now, with going to Midwest, that continues, which I want to talk about in a minute. But overall, I'm really happy with the way the podcast is going. And now that I've changed the name and rebranded it, hopefully this allows potential listeners and unique listeners that come to the podcast every week have a better idea and gain a better perspective of what my podcast is about. Okay, so now that that explanation is out of the way, let's get into the podcast. First off, before we get into the first segment, I just mentioned that I was going to Midwest. I'm starting on the 12th of September. I'm so excited about this because it's another step. It's another step in my journey in my career in radio. And really, I applied for this college course because it is technically an internship. I applied for this course through LinkedIn. The head of the course emailed it to me or messaged it to me, and LinkedIn paid off. It seemed to have paid off because now I'm going to get to work at Midwest for 5 months, and it's going to be a great experience. Internship, hopefully that turns into full-time employment. That's my end goal. But again, if it doesn't, I'll have great experience underneath my belt. Hopefully a couple of great colleagues made through the process and good references throughout. I am aiming high with my ambitions with radio. I want to reach the pinnacle, but I know it's going to be a long journey and it's going to be a tedious journey at times. I'm going to have to take my time with this and not aim for the stars straight away. I'm just going to enjoy each moment as it comes. I'm always going to have those ambitions at the back of my head and the back of my mind kind of driving me forward. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying each moment as it comes in the world of radio. I'm enjoying each segment I do. Each day I'm on the radio station. Each day I'm on live radio doing a segment, whether it's about sports or movies. I'm just enjoying it. And I'm making sure I put across my passion for radio and my drive and my motivation to learn more about everything in radio to whoever I talk to in the industry. And that's what I intend to do in Midwest as well, just to put across how grateful I am and happy I am to be there and how much I want to learn. Because even though I have ambitions to be a presenter, it's not the only thing I want to learn. I don't want to be one of those people who comes in and doesn't know how to work something because it's not in his field. It's not his job to know. I want to learn how to become a better editor. I want to learn how to produce shows. I want to learn about soundboards, about playlists, and learn how to do everything I need to do and have everything at my disposal in the radio station if I do end up working full time somewhere. I want to know that I can work everything if I need to work it. So that is one experience I'm really looking forward to starting, and just super grateful right now that I'm on the journey I'm on, and I'm really reflective, to be honest. I'm really looking back on the person I was before I started this journey and just how much time I wasted in a career that wasn't giving me anything back. I was coming home at the end of my workday and feeling like I was doing something wrong. And the best way I can describe it, I've described it to Leanne at times, my fiance, and I described it to friends after changing into radio. When I was working in social care and I came home at the end of the workday, I felt like I was in trouble with the teacher and I had to go into school the next day to answer for it. I know that's such a simple way of putting it, but it's the only way I can actually articulate it as to how I was feeling in that scenario. And it wasn't until I changed courses I realised, okay, social care definitely isn't for me. I think radio is where I need to be, because going into the radio station each week, I have drive to learn more. I want to learn everything about it. I don't mind putting in the work. I want to put in the work, and I have passion for everything I do. And a year later, I think a year more later, I'm still going into the station every week, getting energy from what I'm putting into it, and having that passion to grow my skills and make sure I'm putting across the best content I can. And it's bled into the podcast as well. I hope people see that. I hope you hear that definitely with the audio, because I've invested to get the right audio coming across so it's more enjoyable for you as a listener listening to it. And it's definitely more enjoyable for me because I've now got the setup, the ideal setup that I've wanted all this time, with the right audio equipment to make sure that my podcasts sound the way I want. So I think the passion isn't dying away, and I was really afraid it would because of what I experienced in the area of social care. But like I said, a year and something later, I'm still making strides. I'm still making sure that I'm putting my best foot forward, and I'm moving on to bigger things and making sure that I don't get ahead of myself. I'm not rushing into anything either. So I'd like to think that things are going exactly the way I want them to go, because I feel that way at the moment. I definitely feel that way. I've definitely talked on this podcast before about the importance of job satisfaction, and I think a lot of people need to put more emphasis on that. I know sometimes it's a luxury to have job satisfaction, but if you can make sure that your job is something you love, do it. Honestly, do it, because you're not going to be disappointing anyone. If you're like me and you had this image or this illusion in your head that I have to stay this course because I spent so much time, or I'm going to be disappointing person A or person B, and it's not worth disappointing them. I said it on radio this week when I was talking about a movie. I think I was making some comparison and I was taking some message out of the movie, saying that, you know, this movie, I think it was The Truman Show, this movie puts across the message that, you know, free will is free will, and you can live your life for yourself or you can live it for other people. And I think a lot of times we're brought up, especially in school as well, to think, okay, what job is going to make us the most money? What job is popular right now? And what job is going to make us feel like we're financially stable? That's important. Obviously, it's important. I'm not stressing that it isn't. But we're not told or asked, what job do you want to do? What job is going to make you happy? What do you have a passion for that you would want to see become a job down the line? Or what do you want to make a job down the line? Stuff like that. So overall, what I'm trying to say is, if you're looking at something that is just a hobby and you want to make it into a career, explore avenues for it. And if you feel like you don't deserve to make it into a career, then maybe talk to a career guidance counselor like I did. Like, I had to actually sit down and talk to someone and build up my confidence to make sure I can make decisions to change my career in a way that I felt, okay, this is okay to do. And sometimes it's about getting the right help and getting the right people to talk to change your mindset, which I had to do as well. As always, I'll keep you updated with my career journey and how Midwest goes. I'm hoping to be able to do the podcast every week, even though I'm starting in Midwest. I would really like to be honest. It only takes me a day and a bit to record the podcast and a day and a bit to edit it. So hopefully my new schedule with Midwest won't impede the podcast from coming out on a regular basis every week. But I'll let you know as time passes what the podcast schedule is going to look like if I have to change it. I'd love to know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter if you're going into a new career, if you're starting a new job. Let me know if you're excited, if you're nervous, what you're feeling, if you're on a similar journey to myself. Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. I'm really excited about this week's episode. I have a lot lined up for you. It's going to be very movie centric. I'm going to be joined later on by Leanne. It's her first time on the podcast. I finally got her to agree to come on, and we're going to be discussing Only Murders in the Building Season 2. We sat down and watched this show together. I briefly discussed it in last week's episode, gave a brief review, but I couldn't sit down and give a comprehensive review without involving Leanne in it, because we did watch the show together. So that's going to be coming up later on. I'm also going to be discussing guilty pleasure shows and running through some big headlines coming out of the world of cinema this week. I'm really excited about everything that we're going to get through today. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. If you're a returning and regular listener of the show, you'll know that I often give recommendations of movies and TV shows you should check out. Last week's recommendation was a new series coming to Apple TV very soon, The Greatest Beer Run, starring Zac Efron, Russell Crowe and Bill Murray. My recommendation for this week's show is a new horror movie starring Ethan Hawke, The Black Phone, which was released in June of this year. As far as I can see, it's not being released on Netflix, but it has been released on Peacock, the new streaming platform, to watch as of August 12th. So if you're looking for a new horror movie to watch and you're a fan of Ethan Hawke, I'd recommend checking out The Black Phone.
I'll be home in the morning.
Where are you going?
I'm staying over at Susie's tonight.
What's new? The flyer.
The papers call him the grabber.
I wish you wouldn't call him that.
You don't actually believe that story, do you? Because he can't hear you, and he doesn't really take kids that safe.
Oh, you goof. Well, isn't that just peachy keen?
You need some help?
You see that?
Yeah.
Would you hand me my hat? Yes, sir. I am a part-time magician.
Are those black balloons in there?
Would you like to see a magic trick?
I have an announcement to make. One of our students, Finney Blake, was abducted.
What if I could help the police find Finney?
Doesn't work. Not since I was a kid.
I'll scream. I'll scratch your face.
This face?
Daddy, I had a dream about it.
What happened in your dream?
He was taken.
By a man with black balloons?
Yes.
We never released those details.
Hello?
Don't hang up.
Who are you?
You know all our names?
You're getting out of here.
Please let the dreams be real.
See the wall in front of you? I tore a long cable loose from down there.
There's a combination lock on the inside of the storm door.
What's the combination?
I carved it in the wall. The tree, the door, the gate. I'd never seen it before except in my dreams.
You don't have much time. You're gonna use a weapon. You raise the phone, step back, and swing.
Look what you made me do.
Please hurry.
You remember what I told you?
There's someday I have to stand up for myself.
Someday is today, Finn.
watch list of movies and TV shows that I need to sit down and watch are growing and growing all the time, and I've just added that to my list now. The Black Phone looks very good, something unique. You never really see Ethan Hawke in a antagonist role, and something as creepy as this. I looked up the character names and the cast, and his character name, he doesn't even have a name, he's just known as the Grabber. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Ethan Hawke plays this. In the trailer you can hear his voice is very soft and delicate, but his body language and his physical acting, his physical presence in the movie is so contradictory of his soft-spoken voice. As well as his voice, they chose a very interesting look for his character. He's very pale, very surly, and very creepy looking at times. And obviously he has this iconic mask that he wears in the movie. If you've seen the trailer, you know what I'm talking about. It seems that every iconic character comes along with an iconic mask, and sometimes the mask is actually what makes the character 10 times better. Thinking of Halloween and Mike Myers, or Jason and the hockey mask. Whether or not the Black Phone gets that iconic legacy like these movies have, who's to say, but I think this is definitely a horror movie that everyone should have on their watch list. I know I will. This movie is directed by Blumhouse Productions, which have a tendency to put out some great movies, but then hit us with some really subpar shit movies, to be honest. Blumhouse obviously gave us the likes of Get Out, Us, Halloween from 2018, but they also gave us Truth or Dare and Fantasy Island, so you never really know what you're going to get with them. But one thing they do well is horror. They're a strictly horror-based production company, so this is their wheelhouse. This is what they're known for. So hopefully Black Phone becomes one of their more successful movies. It does look promising. I really like Ethan Hawke as an actor. I think he's very talented. I never watch a movie of his and come away disappointed. But overall, with Blumhouse, I always err on the side of caution, because as I mentioned, they have had bombs and really underwhelming movies in the past. Let me know if you plan on sitting down and watching The Black Phone. If you already have, I'd love to know your thoughts on it up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. While we're on the topic of horror movies, I have to discuss Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. If you're unaware of this, Winnie the Pooh as a franchise, after years of being under copyright, became free to use in the public domain. And thanks to this lapse in copyright, we now have a horror movie based around the characters of the 100 Acre Wood coming to us very soon. It's just so surreal to know that a horror movie is being made using Winnie the Pooh and all the legendary characters. The movie title is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. We've finally gotten the trailer for this movie. It was released on the 31st of August. I'll be playing it for you very shortly, so get ready for some nightmare fuel. I wanted to get into who is making this movie and what production company is behind it. The movie is directed by Rhys Waterfield. This won't be his directorial debut. He has directed other movies in the past, including The Easter Bunny Massacre, Bloody Mary, Jack and Jill, and Jurassic Valley. Looking at his filmography, he seems to focus around folklore and urban legends for his stories. I am curious to see what direction he takes in telling a story and what components he has to make this a believable horror movie. One thing is for sure, this trailer is going to be nightmare fuel for anyone who grew up watching Winnie the Pooh. Like you, I'll be reacting to this trailer in real time, so let's see what we have in store for us. Okay, so to start off, this movie is produced by Premier Entertainment, ITN Distribution, and Jagged Edge Production.
You're the first person I ever shown this place to.
And why am I so special?
Because soon
Christopher Robin is back in the 100 Acre Wood.
we should be close now.
He's looking for his friends, apparently.
We will. Pooh, Piglet.
I might have to see an RIP sign for Eeyore. Oh god. Oh, they're all gone feral. Just came across the screen.
We need to leave. Now.
I really need to
Show me the costumes. Let's see them. Oh god, they're going to be horrible, aren't they? Oh god, they're bad. Winnie the Pooh looks like a monster. Like a man and a monster mixed together. He looks pissed too. He looks really pissed off.
Did you say has a pool?
Now a couple of women on vacation. They're obviously going to be hunted down. Oh my god, Piglet's with him. Piglet is with Winnie the Pooh.
There's someone else outside.
Oh, here we go. In trouble now. God, this movie looks horrible. It's probably one of those. It's going to be such a good bad movie. Yeah, this looks terrible. Can't wait.
We used to be friends. Why are you doing this, please? I would have never left, I swear.
The growling sounds in between. I love that. Yeah, this movie's going to be awful. It's going to be absolutely terrible. Or maybe not, who knows. But probably, yeah, probably will be. God, can't wait. God, that movie looks horrible, but I think it's going to be one of those great bad movies and become maybe a guilty pleasure for people to watch down the line, or who knows, people might be absolutely disgusted about how bad it is. There are certain movies that just go down in cinema history as great bad movies to watch over and over again, and we all have a list. I know I certainly do, of great bad movies to watch if you want to just turn your brain off, relax, and just laugh at the idiocracy on screen. And they could fail and become bad movies for a number of reasons, whether it's writing, whether it's the script, whether it's the direction, or just bad acting all around. There's certain movies that pop into my mind, like The Happening, starring Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel, which was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, and I think this was one of the first movies he directed that people started to question what kind of trajectory he was on with his movies, and started the landslide of bad movies by M. Night Shyamalan. And if you ever got the chance to watch The Happening, you'll know why it was touted as one of the worst movies he's ever made. It made no sense. It was a bad, really bad attempt at a horror movie. If you haven't seen the masterpiece that is The Happening, a quick synopsis for you. When a plague starts sweeping the US that causes people to commit suicide, Elliot and Alma Moore, played by Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel in this movie, have to evacuate their home, evacuate New York City to try and get some safe ground to avoid this virus. However, the virus is being transmitted through contact on grass and plants. Plants and grass are all around us, so there is no escape. This movie was released in 2008. It made over 163 million in the box office in the US and is possibly the worst M. Night Shyamalan movie to ever hit screens. I remember seeing clips released of Mark Wahlberg arguing with M. Night Shyamalan during the making of this movie about the script, about how it doesn't make sense for his characters to do certain things, and M. Night Shyamalan basically batting him away to say, listen, just film it. So overall, you could see that even the cast and crew weren't sure about what they were making and weren't fully invested in the process of this movie. Best described, this movie is weird and wonderful, mostly weird. There's a whole scene where Mark Wahlberg tries to negotiate with a houseplant not to kill him and his family. Almost like the plant is going to talk back to him. If you want to watch a movie that is so bad it'll make you laugh, sit down and watch The Happening. The acting is terrible. I feel sorry, to be honest, for Zooey Deschanel. John Leguizamo's in this movie as well. He's a great character actor. But overall, I feel sorry for the cast and crew in this movie because, you know, looking back on M. Night Shyamalan's filmography, you can see the dip start here and with one or two other movies, but overall The Happening is probably the worst movie he's ever made, and you feel sorry for the cast and crew involved, but overall it is such a good bad movie to watch. Another famously bad movie is The Wicker Man starring Nicolas Cage. This movie just baffled me at the craziness of it all and how bad and chaotic Nicolas Cage's performance was. It seems that with any Nicolas Cage movie, you never know what you're going to get. You could get a great performance like in the movie Pig, or you could get a chaotic, over-the-top, terrible performance like in Wicker Man or Left Behind, a famously bad Rapture movie that bombed at the box office as well. overall, if you're looking for really bad movies to watch, to turn off your brain and just laugh at, I would go with either The Happening or Wicker Man. If you have seen either of these movies, I'd love to know your thoughts up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Were you in shock and awe about how bad they were, like myself, or did you find some good parts in them? And if you did, please point them out because I can't find any. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about guilty pleasures and what TV shows are on my guilty pleasure list. You're welcome back. I'm talking guilty pleasures at the moment. What TV shows or movies are at the top of your guilty pleasure list at the moment? I know I have a couple up there at the moment, and one in particular is on there because in my mind it's not rated or highly respected as a TV show in the public domain. The show I'm speaking about is Mrs. Brown's Boys, created, written by and starring Brendan O'Carroll. Some of the hatred for this show is just on another level. Mrs. Brown's Boys has 3 seasons in total and has multiple Christmas specials that it does every year. This past year it had a Christmas special like every other year. This past Christmas it focused around COVID, the isolation of it all and the lockdowns. And to be honest, I really love what the series represents. I love Brendan O'Carroll and his outlook on life. He's a very nice person, it seems, and he's very genuine. He's very funny. I love him as a creator, as a director, as an actor. You know, he's been in movies, great Irish movies like The Snapper, The Van. He is a true gem of Irish comedy, and that comes across in his show. I love him on screen. He's such a great improv actor, and every time I watch the show, I get a laugh some way or another. It doesn't matter if I've seen the episode once or 10 times. I just love Brendan O'Carroll on screen as an actor in this show. And sure, it's cheesy at times and the acting isn't great compared to other TV shows on at the moment, but it has a good message. Like I said, the Christmas specials, they have great messages they put across in the show and in the specials, like hope and love and family values and equality. One of the actors in the show who plays Rory, Mrs. Brown's son, is gay in real life, and they used that to push equality for the referendum of gay marriage. And Mrs. Brown, Brendan O'Carroll, did a little special PSA on the right to marry and how gay people have the right to marry. So you can see it's not just a special, it's not just a paycheck to Brendan O'Carroll. He's using his platform to stand up for the rights of other people and to do what he thinks is right and use his platform in a responsible way. And that's why I still like the show and love the show to this day, because of what it represents. And like I said, sure, it's not the best acted show in the world, and it never will be. You know, Brendan O'Carroll has a tendency to hire and keep on a lot of his friends and family and support them in that way, kind of the way Adam Sandler has done throughout his whole career. But overall, it's the message that I really respond to, and the camaraderie that you can see in the cast, and the overall tone of the show. Going back to what I said around the hate for this show, there's plenty of it. I think last year the Christmas special got so much hate, and there was multiple calls for the show to be cancelled. Brendan O'Carroll has actually recently come out in August of this year to confirm that he will not be cancelling the show. He plans to keep on doing Christmas specials, and that the petition won't be going anywhere. There was a petition last year handed around and signed by viewers of the show for it to be taken off BBC, that it wasn't good enough. But when you look at other TV shows on air, there's plenty of other shows that aren't good enough and lack great acting and great writing. Why is Mrs. Brown's Boys being singled out? It's obvious it still gets good ratings. It's been converted into a talk show as well, all round to Mrs. Brown's. And to be honest, I don't watch that aspect of it. I like it as a sitcom. But overall, BBC are not going to cancel something that's making them money and getting them views and ratings. So they must be doing something right. It has been confirmed by a BBC spokesperson that really exciting news around the show is coming in 2022, and that it will be returning on air this year. There probably will be another Christmas special that I will sit down and watch and fully enjoy. Overall, I think this is a guilty pleasure for me, like I mentioned, because how it's viewed in the public domain and by a lot of viewers. But overall, I thought this, and I said it to Leanne when we heard about the petition during the Christmas. If you don't like it, switch over. There's plenty of stuff on TV. Why single something out that's on TV that you don't like? Just switch over. We have so much available at the touch of our fingertips right now. There's so many streaming platforms with great shows to watch. Why try and drag something down that is obviously getting good ratings and has a built-in audience? Just because it's not for you, it doesn't mean it's not for TV. And I'm still trying to get my head around that. I was very much in the past, cancel it, turn it off, it's pure muck. But unless you give it a chance and figure out whether it's for you or not, maybe don't judge. Because often things might not be for you, but like I said, they'll have a built-in audience. So just going back to what I said, just because it's not for you doesn't mean it's not for TV. Let me know what your thoughts are on this show up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Are you a fan of Brendan O'Carroll like I am? Have you seen his other movies in the past? Great gems like The Snapper and The Van. Love to know your thoughts up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Before I move on to the next segment, there is one other TV show that I've always had in my guilty pleasure list because it's reality TV, and I often feel guilty about enjoying reality TV shows because when you really analyze the dialogue or the script or just what's going on before your eyes, you think, oh my God, I'm wasting brain cells watching this. But we all love a bit of muck and a bit of garbage TV sometimes, and that is Jersey Shore. However, now that they've brought it back and the people in the show have kind of matured and gone through the process of fleshing out who they really are on screen, it's actually more enjoyable to watch. I watched another episode of Jersey Shore Holiday Vacation, our family vacation, last night with Leanne. She loves that shit, but often I'll go kicking and screaming watching it, and I'll kind of dip in, watch a tiny bit of it, go back out, and sometimes I'll watch a full episode with her. Jersey Shore Family Vacation, we're watching it at the moment. It's decent, and like I said, because the people on screen, you know, Nicole and JWoww and Vinny and Polly D, they've all kind of grown up on screen together and you can see they're a family unit, but they've also matured. I love how the situation has matured as a person and he's more likable now. Because back in the day when you're watching it, you know, season 1 through 8 or season 1 through 7 or whatever, they're all drug-fueled maniacs and every fight is about something incoherent and really nonsensical. Whereas the content of the show now, you see them more as real people with real ambitions and they're more relatable in that way. Whereas before they're just maniacs down at Jersey Shore getting high and getting in fights over idiotic things. Like I mentioned, I think we all need a bit of garbage TV every now and then to detox and de-stress, and Jersey Shore definitely fills that quota for me. What reality show do you sit down and watch knowing full well it's pure garbage, but you enjoy it anyway? Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Like I mentioned in all of my episodes, you can always get in contact with me around the content of the podcast. Give your opinion, have your say on what I'm talking about on here. On Anchor FM, you can always leave me voice notes on the episode, contact me up on Twitter, or take part in the conversation up on Spotify as well. I would love to know your top 5 list of guilty pleasure movies or TV shows if you have a list at all. Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Next up, we'll be talking some big news stories coming out of the world of cinema this past week. First things first, let's talk sequels. Joker 2 has been confirmed for 2024. The original cast will be returning along with the addition of Lady Gaga, who is set to play Joker's counterpart, Harley Quinn. Zazie Beetz has come out and confirmed her return, as well as Robert De Niro. I really loved the first movie. I know it got a lot of slack for its supposed glorification of violence, but to be honest, it wasn't even that violent of a movie. And I'm bad. I'm squeamish enough when it comes to horror movies and gory horror movies. Okay, it does take the angle, a very dark road of the Joker character, and it does look at the ins and outs of mental illness in a very dark tone. But overall, there wasn't a lot of violence in this. There was one or two scenes that stood out in the movie as more than enough violence. I don't think it was glorifying anything, and the overreaction, in my opinion, to this movie was something we've seen before. We've seen it with the GTA games and Rockstar when they brought out Bully. It felt like people's reactions to the GTA games back in the day and how they said, oh, it's glorifying violence. The Joker movie, in my perspective, it's putting a spotlight on mental illness and the inadequacies and the lack of facilities that were around in the 1980s in which the movie is set. Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix, is extremely mentally ill and really has no outlet. He goes to a social worker every week, is asked the same questions over and over again. I kind of spoke about this when I reviewed it on CRC-FM, and I said the same thing. Overall, I'm really excited about the sequel. I'm really interested and curious what route they take, how Lady Gaga is going to play Harley Quinn. We've seen an interpretation of Harley Quinn already through Margot Robbie. So is she going to take inspiration from that? How is she going to mold the character and put her own spin on it? I am really excited to see Joaquin Phoenix return in the title role. He did make me feel very uneasy in the first movie, but I think that's what Todd Phillips was aiming for when directing Joker. I think he wanted us to feel squirmy in our seats and feel very taken aback and uneasy with Joaquin Phoenix on screen. And I'm going to predict that that's kind of the tone that we're going to see in the second movie. There is an interaction in the movie with Arthur Fleck, played by Joaquin Phoenix, and a young Batman who hasn't lost his parents yet. So I wonder if they're going to go down that avenue again and have interactions with an older Bruce Wayne and Arthur Fleck and build a story and a plot around that. Very excited for that sequel. Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Did you enjoy the first movie? Are you a fan of Joaquin Phoenix? Did you find the interpretation of the Joker character in Todd Phillips' version interesting? Or did you think it was a bit too boring? Let me know your thoughts on the Joker movie and the sequel up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. On to a bit of sad news now, as the world of animation has lost another creator. Ralph Eggleston, who has won multiple awards as a Pixar animator and director, has died at the age of 56. He was involved in such great movies with Pixar Studios and other animation studios over the years. He worked on the likes of The Simpsons, The Lion King, Toy Story 2, Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, Monsters Inc., and many more like this. Eggleston contributed so much to the world of animation, being recognized for his efforts, winning multiple awards as an animator and as a director. On to horror movie news now, as John Carpenter has come out in a recent interview and stated that Halloween Ends may not be the last in the franchise. During an interview with the New Yorker, Carpenter came out and said that further sequels are totally dependent on each movie's performance in the box office. So if Halloween Ends does great at the box office, we could see another movie in the franchise. Carpenter finished his point by stating, if a movie makes enough money, you know there's going to be a sequel. When I went to go see Halloween Kills in theaters last year, I fully thought this was the end of the franchise. They had a plot point in the movie that really made you think, okay, this is the end. But like John Carpenter said, if there's a demand and you can see the profits coming in, of course you're going to want to keep going and keep the ball rolling. And Halloween has been around for decades. You know, it started in the 70s. And if you really want a really interesting documentary to watch, go watch The Movies That Made Us. It actually gives you a behind the scenes look of how iconic movies are made. And they have one on Halloween. And it's really interesting to see how this movie almost didn't get made because people didn't believe in the script and they didn't think it'd be scary enough. So if that's something you're interested in, go check out The Movies That Made Us. I think it's available up on Netflix. But overall, I think this franchise is dead. I don't see how it's making money still. Everything is very by the book. You know what's coming. Mike Myers is basically the devil and God combined in one. You can't kill him off. The iconic mask is still something to look forward to, and the eeriness and godlike power of Mike Myers is still an alluring thing for a horror movie. You'd want to think there's something that could take down Mike Myers in Halloween Ends. But as I mentioned, if the money is there, sequels are going to get made. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Halloween franchise up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Did you enjoy the last movie? Are you happy the franchise is still alive, or do you think it's time for it to go? Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Staying on the subject of horror movies, we finally have a trailer for the release of Orphan First Kill, a sequel to the original movie released in 2009. The origin of this movie was loosely based around real events. Look it up if you don't believe me. I actually told Leanne about this story this past week, and she didn't believe me that the movie was based around loose but real events. So look it up if you're curious. On my first viewing, I did enjoy the movie. It does exactly what a horror movie like this is supposed to do. It makes you feel creepy, uneasy, and very eerie at times. I thought the acting was pretty good, but overall I don't think it deserves a sequel. But like I mentioned on this podcast before, I think everything is getting a sequel nowadays, so why not Orphan? The lead actress who played the role in 2009 is returning to play Esther, Isabel Furman, who did a great job. She was super creepy, super scary at times, and I thought she pulled it off very well. Julia Stiles will be starring in the movie as well. I've always liked her work, big fan of her, so hopefully this is a great movie. Let me know what your thoughts are on this horror movie. Have you seen it? What did you think? How do you rate it? Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Before we move on, and I'm joined by Leanne to discuss Only Murders in the Building Season 2, please enjoy the trailer for Orphan First Kill.
What is he doing here?
We found your daughter. She's alive.
Be prepared for changes. We have a child therapist that she'll be working with.
4 years is a long time. What she needs right now is her family.
Esther? Sweetheart, it's Mommy. Welcome home, Esther. We left it just as it was.
It's lovely to be back. I miss my family very much.
Our goal here is helping Esther acclimate back into life within the family unit.
Sorry.
I think something's going on with Esther.
Is there anything you want to tell me about your time away?
How's that possible? 4 years ago, she was still drawing stick figures.
Esther's behavior has been so erratic.
Hello, Mommy. Thank you, Mommy. I know, Mommy.
I did notice some inconsistencies.
What are you getting at?
To me, it felt like a performance.
If you're not Esther, who are you?
You gotta give.
Mommy, I made it for you.
Take a little. And let your poor heart break a little. That's the story of.
The mother protects her family. No matter what.
That's the story of. That's the glory of love.
God, that shit looks creepy. There's just something about child actors and child horror movies that just get to me every time. Elizabeth Furman looks like she is going to take the reins in this role and really play it up. It also looks like they're going to be exploring the original story that actually gave rise and originated the first movie. So that's very interesting to see. Again, like I mentioned, the first movie was originated and based off of real life events that happened. So if you are curious, look it up and check it out for yourself. I'd love to know your thoughts on the Orphan First Kill trailer. Did you feel it deserved a sequel? Did you see the original movie? And are you going to go watch this one? Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Up next, I'm going to be joined by Leanne in studio to discuss Only Murders in the Building Season 2. You're very welcome back. I was supposed to be joined by Leanne in this segment to discuss Only Murders in the Building. However, she cannot join me for this episode, so hopefully I can get her on future episodes down the line to discuss our favourite movies and TV shows. But as for the time being, you have me discussing this solo. So let's get into it. Only Murders in the Building Season 2, for me, was a letdown. I really enjoyed Season 1. I really gravitated towards the characters. I loved the dynamic between Martin Short and Steve Martin. It's obvious they have not missed a step in their chemistry from other movies they've appeared in together, like Father of the Bride and that whole franchise. And I even gravitated towards Selena Gomez's character. I thought, okay, she's very snarky, very one tone, one note, but that must be the way her character is written. And compared to Martin Short and Steve Martin being chaotic and neurotic, she's very calm, very mellow, very zen, and really doesn't care as much as they do. She's very apathetic. But overall, I thought it was a good dynamic as a trio. There was a good couple of mysteries. Season 1 kept me guessing. I love the guest appearances from Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan. I think they're excellent actors. The story was strong. The premise was strong as well. But even through Season 1, I was thinking this can't be a long-term show or a long-term idea because it won't work. And I think it was halfway through Season 1 that I almost accepted the fact that we could only get one season of Only Murders in the Building. And I was happy with that because it was a great first season. When Season 2 came out, I was relieved, but I was also cautious because that thought popped back into my head of, okay, will this have the bones to run for an entire season and not get boring? Immediately into Season 2, I just disliked Selena Gomez's character. And I think it's because she was wearing thin on me and Leanne to begin with. Leanne hated her through Season 1. She's not shy about saying that. And when I do have her on, she will testify to that she hated Selena Gomez in the show. But overall, I think I bought her premise for her character a bit more and was accepting of it. But near the end of Season 1, I was thinking, okay, you have to have some range of emotion in your performance. She had no range at all. It was very stiff. But again, I gave the show the benefit of the doubt, thinking, okay, this is the way her character is written. She's kind of numb to it all. Maybe it's true trauma that we're going to find out in Season 2, which we kind of do. And by the way, spoilers for Season 2, I'm going to get into things here. So if you haven't seen Season 2 and you're still looking forward to watching it, maybe turn off for this segment and join me next week. Back to what I was saying, Selena Gomez and her character just got on my nerves right away and was instantly hateable in this show. Because again, it's very hard to live up to the acting standards of Martin Short and Steve Martin and the chemistry they have. And I'm never going to hate anything those two do on camera together in a show. I love them throughout this season as well. But I just felt Selena Gomez's character was not adding to anything. And if she did, it was in this monotone, monochromatic voice that was just like it was so robotic. It was so robotic, and each scene she was in, it was a mood killer. And it just felt like she wasn't acting. It felt like there was no range. Like I mentioned in Season 1, there was no emotional range. There was nowhere for her to go. There was no building up of her emotions in a scene. And through most of it, she wasn't believable. I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a minute, but let's get on to the characters that were introduced in Season 2. First off, Amy Schumer. I spoke about her and her introduction in this show, I think last week, because I was midway through the season. Now that I've finished it, I'm so glad it was only one episode. I think it was one episode or two, but if they made Amy Schumer a permanent character on the show for Season 2, it would have ruined it. Like, she is just horrible in my opinion. She's not funny. I don't think she has a dynamic on screen that worked in this show. And I just felt like they were just throwing stuff in the mix that didn't match the tone of the show. Yes, in season 1 they had Sting appear as himself, as a celebrity that lived in the building, but at least Sting has an air of charisma about him and was pretty good on screen. You know, he had scenes with Martin Short, with Steve Martin at times, and he was funny, and I did enjoy the scenes that he was in season 1. Amy Schumer, I didn't have time for her. I don't have time for her as an actress, as a stand-up comedian. I just don't like her. And I've said this on a previous show. I think she's a joke stealer. It's been proven, really. And her comedy does seem very lazy. It's not my taste. And I just felt her in this show, it didn't match. It didn't match up. Let me know if you've seen season 2 and if you had the same feelings as I had seeing her arrive on screen in, I think, episode 2 or 3. I was horrified. That was the first red flag in season 2 for me. Second red flag, Cara Delevingne's performance. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike Cara Delevingne. Not a big fan of her, like I mentioned last week. I spoke about her performance as well. Overall, I'm on the fence about her as an actress. I don't follow her work. I'm not rushing to see the next Cara Delevingne album. I don't follow what she does online. I hated her in the show. It just felt like a role that didn't need to exist in the show and was just there to stretch time. That's another thing in this show that really was a red flag. Stretching episodes with subplots that don't amount to anything. And I know some subplots are there to give you revelations, they're there to give you conclusions, and there to give you laughs as well. But in a murder mystery show, you're looking at every subplot thinking, where's this going to lead? What are we going to reveal or discover with this subplot? But Cara Delevingne's performance and role in this show was a subplot that I didn't enjoy. I thought it was forced, and I thought it was very evident that it was there to stretch an episode, to give us a bit of filler time, because in the end her role in this show is so non-consequential that she might as well not even be in it. She has a little love affair with Selena Gomez's character, comes across as like this knight in shining armor that's going to heal her wounds and be good for her. But then in the space of half an episode, the show turns her character on its head and paints her out to be this person who came into Mabel's life and just decided to take advantage of her vulnerable state to make money as an artist. Again, similar to Amy Schumer's appearance in the show, Cara Delevingne's character and performance in the show seemed out of place with the rest of the plot. It seemed like it was a different show coming into the mix every time she was on screen. There's multiple scenes in this show where you feel, okay, we're getting dragged off into this subplot, nothing's going to happen. It feels like a different show. It feels like there's so many different teams at play when Cara Delevingne is on screen with Selena Gomez or Martin Short and Steve Martin. There's a whole party scene that the show writers use to turn her into a villain rather than a savior for Mabel. And I'm glad they did it, to be honest, because they were able to write her out of the major plot points in the show at that point. Because I was thinking, where is her character going? What is she adding to the plot, the main story of this show? She's not adding much. She's there as a support to Mabel when all this stuff is going on, but she's not helping with the investigation. She doesn't seem to be a character like Amy Ryan's character in the first season, where she was actually the murderer and she was throwing herself into the investigation to stop it. So again, non-consequential. And I know we need subplots in movies and TV shows to keep us entertained, to give us some levity, give us some laughs, give us some drama, sadness, whatever you want. But subplots need to lead somewhere. Whether it's concluded after 2 episodes or 10, subplots are there to have a beginning, middle, and end. And every time we went back to the subplot of Cara Delevingne's character, it seemed that there was no script. It seemed that they were just making it up as they went along. And I'm glad, like I said, that this was snuffed out after, I think it was episode 5, after the party scene. Cara Delevingne's character didn't really come into it as much anymore. She made an appearance in the finale, but again, I think that was her biggest role in the finale. She was used as a plot device in the finale to uncover the real murderer. But overall, I did not like the subplot. And like I mentioned, I know they're there for a reason. Subplots exist to get us through a show, but with that subplot, it felt like they were stretching for time, and it felt so unnatural against the other teams going on in the show. One subplot I did like, and I thought there was a bit of a conclusion to it and a natural beginning, middle and end, was the subplot around Martin Short's character and his son, and the fact that his son actually might not be his son, and Nathan Lane's character cheating with Martin Short's character's wife all those years ago. Overall, I thought that was a very well acted subplot, and there was a lot of meat and bones to it. It was sad in parts, it was happy in others. It gave me everything I needed in a nice subplot for a TV show. Again, similar to the Cara Delevingne subplot, didn't really have much to do with the murder, but it was a strong subplot from beginning to the middle to the end, and that's why I enjoyed it. Before I move on to some positives around the show, the last bit of negative critique I have about season 2 was I didn't feel as invested. It felt like the show was stretched very thin, that they were searching for areas to explore so that they could fill 10 episodes, and for some of it I just tuned out. I didn't really care. After we had finished episode 5, I think it took us a while to sit down and watch the rest of the season, because like I mentioned, both myself and Leanne weren't really invested, and it felt like the show had already run its course before season 2 had finished, which is something I want to go back to that I stated when I started this review. The premise of season 1 started to wear thin near the end, and this was evident throughout season 2. The premise was wearing thin, and I think that's why they were so concentrated on the subplots and giving us 1 or 2 solid subplots to keep us entertained throughout the show, so that we didn't notice that the premise was wearing very thin. But I could see it throughout the show. I kept on wanting them to get back to the murder mystery, and I wasn't really entertained with the subplots. Like I mentioned, the subplot with the father and the son, interesting enough, but overall I wanted to get back to the murder mystery, and it felt like they were just running out of ideas of where to go, what to do, who to incriminate, and how to go about solving the mystery. With that all being said, I did finish off this show, and I mentioned last week, if I start a show, I'm going to finish it, no matter how long it takes. I may take breaks in between episodes or seasons, but if I start it, I'll definitely finish it. I did enjoy the last 2 episodes of the show. It felt like they started to pick up steam near the end. I just wish that chemistry and that entertainment factor was there throughout the season 2. Overall, they finished strong, and the way they were angling for the last 2 episodes, I knew they would set it up for season 3. Now, fair warning of spoilers for the finale of this show. You've been warned. Now is your chance to turn away, turn off, and join me next week. I'll give you 2 minutes. Okay, let's get into it. The finale of the show, I really enjoyed. I am glad they brought Cara Delevingne's character back as a plot device. I thought it really worked. In the finale, they have a killer reveal party in one apartment with all the residents from the Arcadian invited to that. And they also invite their number 1 suspect, Cinda Canning, to that killer reveal party as well, to try and elicit a confession out of her. Cinda Canning, played by Tina Fey, did a very good job. She's very hateable in the show, very snarky, very unlikable, and I think she did a great job at playing the villain in season 2. I'm a big fan of Tina Fey, so I really liked her performance in this. There was a good plot twist in the end of the finale that it's actually not Cinda Canning and it is her intern that's doing the killing, helped along with her boyfriend, who is a crooked cop, played by Michael Rappaport. I really like Michael Rappaport as an actor. I thought he had a lot to do in this season. He was a very tough character, and he was entertaining as well. He goes head to head with Mabel in a lot of the scenes and is very, very shady to say the least. But it turns out that he is involved in setting up Mabel as well. So there is a whole dynamic there. And there is a few plot points revealed that we didn't know before about Cinda Canning's intern and her motive behind committing these murders. Reflecting on how entertaining the finale of this show was just makes me even more disappointed, because there's nothing worse than sitting down watching a show each episode hoping that's the episode that it gets good and it kind of kicks off. I kept on waiting for season 2 to fully engage me and become fully entertaining the way season 1 was. And I never really got that. I got a taste of how entertaining season 1 was near the end of season 2. Like I mentioned, the last 2 episodes really get going and get entertaining. But overall, it was a lot of waiting around with subplots I didn't care about and a very thin plot for season 2 that made me feel, okay, this is on its last legs and the season is over before it really begins. But as I mentioned, the way they end this show, they give us a great cliffhanger and set up for a 3rd season. I have read online that Only Murders season 3 will be coming in February of 2023, and the show will be available to stream on Hulu exclusively. I'm excited to see what comes of season 3. I am glad that the last 2-3 episodes did pick up some steam, because that shows that the writers just had trouble writing season 2. And hopefully the premise that they have in season 3 is a bit more beefier and there's a lot more to do. They have Paul Rudd appear in the finale, who is the person who was killed off, so hopefully there's a lot to work with in season 3, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Only Murders season 2 gets a 3 out of 5 from me. I kept on waiting for the show to come good like it did in season 1. I never really got that. I did still enjoy the dynamic on screen between Steve Martin and Martin Short, but as a premise, it just felt stretched too thin. Hopefully season 3 doesn't disappoint like this one has, but again, only time will tell. I'd love to know your thoughts on this show up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. Do you agree with my analysis, or did you find it more entertaining than season 1? Love to know your thoughts up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter. As we bring the episode to a close, I want to get your feedback on everything I spoke about in this episode. Remember, you can always get in contact with me up on Twitter, Kyle_T_Duffy. You can also leave voice notes on the episode up on Anchor FM and take part in the conversation up on Spotify as well. I love talking about movies like this, getting into deep discussions around movies, TV shows. Like I mentioned, it's one of my big passions. I also love talking gaming and sports as well. This episode obviously was more movie centric. Let me know up on Anchor FM, Spotify and Twitter if you like this kind of content, if you want to see more of it, or if you want me to focus more on interviews or sports or gaming. Love to know your thoughts on the podcast and where it's going. I'm very excited about the future, very excited about my plans for the podcast, and again, very happy to have you along for the journey. See you next week. This brings the episode to a close. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to check out the rest of my catalogue available on Spotify, Google Podcasts and Anchor FM. Whatever podcast platform you listen to, make sure to give Is It Recording some love, give it a follow and share the episode with your friends. I'm very excited to be on this journey with the podcast and happy to have you along for the ride. New episodes are available every Friday, so make sure you never miss out. This has been Is It Recording with Kyle Duffy. Thanks for listening.